He took that. He took the photo of the first pitch in the Astrodome, 65. Same angle with the scoreboard in the back, and the ball's in flight.
Yep.
He took a picture from about the same vantage point. First pitch at Enron Field in 2000, same deal. The same guy, and then Mike got him to donate because we didn't have any money to pay him. Donate these photos to the book, right?
Yeah, so we put these photos in the book. These photos otherwise didn't exist. I mean, we had black and white, but you're talking color pictures. And so the other pictures you'll see here in a little bit, but it's just a great photo. He was very cognizant of taking a picture right as the first pitch was happening with nothing on the scoreboard, so you can actually see that the game is just beginning. It's not, in the bottom of the first or the top of the second during the first game. It's actually, this is the moment right here where the ball is halfway in flight to home plate. Just a real good baseball mind. A real, he had the wherewithal to think ahead, and this is a historical moment for Houston, and document something like this. No, I think he was over at third base. I think that might have been, is that Malfitano, maybe?
I think it's Joey Malfitano.
Yeah. Bob Lillis should be, I think, at shortstop. Yeah. Yeah. Ernie Banks hit home run number 299 that day, but he was out. No, he was out on this one here. Bob Astromonte got the first hit, scored the first run, and Ramon Mejia's hit 2 home runs that day, first 2 in franchise history. And of course, it looks like it was an overcast day. It's not a lot of sun, but I'm sure it was humid. This is a nice picture of the guys in the clubhouse. I believe this is at Colt Stadium. There wasn't there's not a lot of pictures that you see in the clubhouse. This is a pretty rare photo. Al Spangler to the far right, and then Amalfitano and Aspromonte, Bob Lillis, and Dick Gernert down on the end over here. And it's just, one of the real cool things. I mean, you can always look at the action shots that happen on the field, but the great thing about baseball are the people who create those moments and seeing the human side of players, which I think a lot of the fans really don't get to see, because you buy a ticket, you go sit in the stands, you see them take the field, and they play the game. But it's always nice to see the camaraderie, the chemistry behind the scenes with players. It's just a real nice touch. It really is. And our team right now, I think, compared to, I always thought that '86 was probably the best team chemistry-wise, but our team this year, they're taking it to a different level. I mean, these guys really fight for each other. They celebrate after every win for each other. I mean, we have this wrestling belt that they give out to the player of the game, and they cheer each other on, and they have smoke machines and lights, and now a little bit different from then, but I mean it's still the same spirit. This is the former manager Harry Kraft, and this is Miss Colt 45. They used to have a Miss Colt 45 every year, and you can see the colorful seats behind them. Those seats were metal, and you could buy a seat pad to sit on, but you also can see that there's no awning to provide any shade over at Colt Stadium. Colt Stadium was actually built by a scaffolding company because it was meant to be temporary. And it sat more than, I think it was 8 or 9 other major league cities around at that time. It had a greater capacity than that. But these were metal seats. So if you can imagine sitting out in the heat, in the sun, and you're going to feel the warmth under you at that point.
We did a lot of research, and I have uncovered a few details that may not be written about too often, but the Mosquitoes had to register a flight plan with Hobby Airport. And the other thing was that nobody was showing up at the Blood Center to donate because they were donating every night.
Now, one of the things, this is a great shot here, another real nice color photo of Colt Stadium with all the colorful seats. And as you may know, the colorful seating extended into the Astrodome with all the different types of color seats from yellow, blue, purple, gold, orange, red. But this is a great picture. This is in late 19, or this actually might be in 1964. Because they had the top and out ceremony, and the roof wasn't covered like that in late '63. So this is probably early part of 1964 here, as the outer walls were going to start going up on the Astrodome. But Bill just mentioned the Mosquitoes. when they dug a hole that was over 700 feet in diameter and about 30 feet deep, and the playing field sits 25 feet below street level. So when they did that, a lot of people don't know that there's also an underground stream that goes right through that property, and it still does. In fact, right now there's a pump that's still pumping out water and filters it out from the inside of the Astrodome and up through the drainage system that they built for the stadium, and will continue to do that forever. But that water seeped into that hole and thus created a lot of mosquitoes, and they would fly over to cold. That's really where the mosquitoes came from, because there was a halt on construction. There was a lawsuit with a Houstonian who felt that the bond shouldn't be used to build the dome, that he didn't like the way that they were going to build a new stadium. He felt the money should be used somewhere else. It's kind of the same story you hear all the time when sports teams want to build a new facility. And so anyway, there was a delay in construction, so that hole sat there for a year as they broke ground in 1962, and it wasn't until March of 1963 that they actually started building the Astrodome. And of course, these are the two main guys. I mean, there's a group of men that compose the Houston Sports Association, which is Craig Cullinan, George Kirksey. Those were the two driving forces to get Major League Baseball in Houston. But it wasn't until these two men here, Ari Bob Smith on the left and Roy Hoffines on the right, when these two guys joined the Houston Sports Association, that things really got rolling, because Hoffines was the brains behind getting the stadium done. Ari Bob Smith was the money man. He owned the land in Houston as well. They had 494 acres out there where the Astrodome was built. They bought some of that from the Hilton Hotel Company, and then they sold it back to the county for $1, so that way they could build the stadium site. But the plans for the Astrodome started from a shopping center. If you know the Galleria in Houston, that was built 5 years after the Astrodome, and Roy Hoffines had been working on a domed shopping center because all the malls were outdoors, kind of like the way they've gone now with outlet centers again, but there were no indoor shopping centers. But he gave up that idea when another one was developed, and it was further along, and so he took that idea back, and then the Houston Sports Association approached Ari Bob Smith and said, we need your help. We need some financing. We need to get further into the corporate boardrooms in Houston to get some support for this stadium. And he in turn said, well, you need Judge Hoffines. Judge Hoffines, former Harris County judge and Houston mayor. He also desegregated Houston, which was a big part of getting the Astrodome built with the African American vote. And without these two guys, we probably would have just had an open air stadium in Houston. Or maybe it would have been built later in the 60s. There probably would have been a delay. Maybe we would have gotten a team along the lines when Montreal or San Diego came about at that point. But these were the two catalysts. And then just kind of a generic view of the inside of the Astrodome. This is taken from behind the home plate area, looking to center field. You see a tunnel out there before the east wall. That open wall, is where the massive scoreboard went across the outfield. And you can see the skylights where there's shadow from the girders, and then there's no shadows on the right because it diffuses the light. It also caused a lot of glare. And then some generic shot of these guys. There were a couple of men who lost their lives while building the Astrodome. You can see them climbing the girders and putting the lamella trusses together. This is the time capsule that was buried on March 27th, 1963, that we actually located back 2 years ago. And it's still buried at the Astrodome, but where these people are standing now is at the base of the retaining wall under column 17. There's 72 main columns of the Astrodome in concentric rings, and this is the outermost ring, and it's buried underneath a pillar. So if we were to go in there and dig for it, you would do some damage to the retaining wall and have to repair it. So they want to wait until the renovation gets going, and then maybe later on go back in there and take that out. The Houston consulate, with all these countries, they put mementos of their countries into it. I've never seen a list, and all the news accounts just says that there were mementos that went in there from all these various countries, kind of, I guess, just dedicating that time and history, that underneath there. But we did a soil test, and the land underneath it is still dry. Where I was concerned about water seeping in, but it's dry. So we ever try to dig it out, it should be okay. One of the other things, talking about off the field stuff too, was all the restaurants and the clubs and the palace that the Astrodome was in the early days. All of the workers had special outfits. Roy Hoffman's was about flair, flamboyance, style, doing things a different way. And you see there's the Spacette who showed people to their seats up in the upper left. There's a sketch right there. And you have the grounds crew dressed in astronaut suits that were vacuuming the AstroTurf at one point. They were also, the guys that wore the same suits out in the parking lot were called space finders. So everything tied to the space team back then. And then the different restaurants. So you see the Dome Skeller, the Astrodome Club, busboy, the waiters, all sorts of. And then a completed picture of the Astrodome. This was taken in 1969, right about New Year's, during the holidays. That star on top is still on top of the Astrodome, but it's laying down. They would bring it back up over the years to light it up after an Astros win in the 90s. But this is just a real classic shot, real nice shot of the cars, and nice color picture of the way it looked out there. Interior view, this is 1965. You can see the grass. It didn't live very long. There's the very famous story of AstroTurf. It was already turning brown. They used to spray paint it. They put sawdust down, a little bit of hay, so it would show up as green to the fans, or if it was on TV, it would look like it was full, but it was, after about a year, there was no use in hiding the decay. And that all stemmed from painting the skyline.